Verse 26, her priests have done violence to my teaching. This is in Ezekiel's day. This is in Jeremiah's day. This is in today, our time. They're priests. By priests, we mean those that are teaching, those that are supposed to be responsible for instructing. He says they've done violence to my teaching. Is there anything more violent than telling everybody the law has been done away with? I mean, that's literally taking the law and ripping it out of your book. I mean, what could be more violent than that? They've done violence to my teaching, and they profane my set-apart matters. In other words, they say that which is set apart is now useless because it's not set apart. They're profaning it. Now back to the girdle again, right? He says they have not distinguished between the set apart, the kadosh, and the profane. In other words, they've made no distinguishment saying, well, this thing that's profane really is also kadosh, or kadosh is really profane. They've made no distinguishing between them. In other words, up is down, black is white, in is out, left is right. I mean, it doesn't matter. They're distinguishing. I mean, we need to be distinguishing between these things. There's certainly things that we need to understand. This is right and this is wrong. This is what he says to do. This is what he says not to do. And he tells us to distinguish between them. He says, nor have they made known the difference between the tahor and the tameh, the unclean and the clean. Or I should say the tameh and the tahor. Tameh being unclean, tahor being clean. They made no distinguishment between the unclean and the clean. And so what is that talking about, the unclean and the clean? They're talking about all of the ritual things that can make you unclean. Coming into contact with dead things, eating something you shouldn't eat. All of these things they have not made separated between what is clean and what is unclean. He says, and they've hidden their eyes. Now, by the way, notice the phrasing, hidden their eyes. In other words, they should have been able to see. These are not blind people, meaning even spiritually blind. They hid their eyes. They chose to hide their eyes from or to not look, to turn a blind eye towards my Sabbaths, and I'm profane in their midst. So they don't want to see the Sabbath. They don't want to see the Sabbaths, plural, the annual Sabbaths that come on the feast days. You know, the first day of unleavened bread, the last day of unleavened bread, Shavuot, trumpets, atonement, the first day of Sukkot, and Shemini Atzeret, the 8th day. The 7 annual Shabbats. They don't want to identify them and explain them. They've hidden their eyes from these things. Her leaders are in their midst like wolves, tearing the prey to shed blood, destroy lives to get greedy gain. Oh, isn't that what we see out there? Everybody's trying to get something. Gimme, gimme, gimme. Even those in our quote-unquote part of the body or whatever, everybody wants to sell everything. You know, get this 6 CD sets, only $65 for an offering of only $65, whatever. Listen, I'm not patting myself on the back, but everything that we have on the table, everything that we have online is all free. Why? Because that's what it's supposed to be. Now, if you're moved to make an offering, well, that's between you and Abba. That's when he says, we read that in the Torah portions, right, this week. He says, all those whose hearts were moved gave an offering. Fine, if your heart's moved, give an offering. I'm not asking you for one. I'm not going to beg for one. I'm not going to sell you anything. That's not the way it works. No greedy gain going on there. And her prophets have coated them with whitewash, seeing a false vision. Now, this is where I wanted to go to. This is what Jeremiah was talking about, or at least Abba was talking about through Jeremiah. Yahweh said, look, her prophets have coated them with whitewash. In other words, tickled their ears, told them what they wanted to hear, seeing a false vision and divining a lie for them, saying, thus said the Master Yahweh, when Yahweh had not spoken. I can't understand how that doesn't scare the you-know-what out of everybody out there saying those things. How do you say those things and not have a tremendous amount of concern and fear? You could turn the TV on tomorrow onto cable stations where all these online televangelists, and you're going to hear a whole bunch of them say, oh, the Lord told me to tell you. Aren't you going to hear that tomorrow? That's what he's talking about here, though. You better be real careful when you say, the Lord told me to tell you. You know what the Lord told me to tell you? Whatever I'm reading, that's what he told me to tell you. All of his words here, he said, just read them and let them hear me tell them. That's how I know he actually said it, because I'm going to read him saying it. You know what he wanted me to tell you? Whatever he says here, that's what he wanted me to tell you. He didn't give me any private message. He didn't give me any private revelation. He didn't give me any sort of, phone call or whatever. I didn't get a memo. He said, read my word and I'll speak to them directly. So you know what he wants you to know? When it says here, thus said Yahweh, that's what he wants you to know. Now, Jeremiah gets to say, this is the word that Yahweh gave to me. I'm afraid to say those words. But I know that Yirmiyahu actually had Yahweh speak to him. What I feel Yahweh leads me to do is read his word to you, because that's how he speaks to you. But he says here, be careful. He says, our prophets, they're seeing a false vision, they're divining a lie. Divining a lie meaning they're saying, just like the prophets in Jeremiah's day saying, oh, no, don't worry about it. The famine will end. The food is coming. The sword isn't going to come. Don't worry about the sword. Babylon. We don't have to worry about all that. Shameful. It's incredible, the lack of fear. The lack of fear of Yahweh. That it would not cause you to fear. I mean, I see a lot of people all over Facebook with that same lack of fear. Oh, they're so quick to jump in and straighten everybody out. And I said, as soon as you put yourself in a position of teacher, you better be in that fear. The fear of, what if I'm saying something that's not right? What if I'm wrong about this and I'm leading somebody into a pit? What if they're going to listen to me? That should be something that you pray strongly about. What if people actually listen to me? I mean, I want you to listen to me as I share with you what he says, but I always am worried about, on some levels, you know what I'm saying? I'm worried about, what if I say something and they listen to me and it's wrong? Guess who that's on? Both of us. Because he said those who listen to the prophets, he's also going to take care of them in the streets. So it's on both of us. But I have the bigger responsibility because I was supposed to shepherd. I was supposed to be the one who has the caregiver, the one you were supposed to be in my care as a physical overseer. And so I'm going to get the greater punishment for that. And so where's that concern? And by the way, can we agree that what you read here saying in Ezekiel and the same thing we read in Jeremiah, we certainly could apply that today, couldn't we? Just as easily. Wouldn't that also apply today?